Chess, how to play. The object of the game is to checkmate the other king. Checkmate happens when the king is in a position to be captured and cannot escape from the capture. Lay out an 8x8 checkered board between two players with a lighter colored space in the bottom right. Set up the second row with white's pawns. On the first row, from left to right, set up rook, knight, bishop, queen, king, bishop, knight, rook. On the opposite side of the board, mirror this setup for the black pieces. Each player picks a color, and the player playing as white moves first, then turns alternate. On your turn, you must move one of your pieces that is on the board, even if you don't want to. Pieces may not share a space. Instead, you may move your piece to the same space as an enemy piece to capture that piece and remove it from the board. Pieces capture the first enemy piece they move into, then stop moving, and, with the exception for the knight, pieces are not allowed to move through any other piece. The queen can move any number of spaces in a straight line in any direction. The rook can move any number of spaces horizontally or vertically. The bishop can move any number of spaces diagonally. The knight jumps 2 spaces either horizontally or vertically, then 1 space at a right angle from the last one, so that the move resembles the letter L. The knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. Pawns can only move 1 space forward towards their opponent's side of the board, but can only capture 1 space diagonally forward. A pawn may not capture a piece directly in front of it, nor move diagonally forward. Each pawn's first move of the game is allowed a double-step move, which allows it to move 2 spaces forward instead of 1 if you want. However, if a pawn performs a double-step move, and in so doing moves past a space that an opponent's pawn could have captured if that pawn had only moved 1 space, then the opponent may choose to perform en passant on their very next turn and capture to the passed-over space with their pawn and remove the double-step pawn from the board. En passant may only be used on the very next turn. It cannot be saved for later. Only a pawn may perform en passant. When a pawn reaches the farthest row of the board, it is promoted to either a knight, bishop, rook, or queen. The owner of the piece decides what it is promoted to. The choice is not limited to previously captured pieces. Remove the pawn from the board and replace it with the promoted piece. Promoted pieces move as a normal piece. There is no limit to the quantity of any type of piece you can promote to, other than when you run out of pawns. The king can move 1 space in any direction, but it may never move to a space that an opponent's piece could capture. The king can perform a special move called castling. To castle, move your king 2 spaces towards either rook, then move that rook to the other side of the king. It must be the king's very first move. It must also be that rook's very first move, and there cannot be any pieces in between the king and the rook, and the king may not be threatened, nor pass through a threatened space or end on a space that is threatened. But the rook can pass through a threatened space or be threatened. Whenever a piece threatens to capture a king, this is called check. Whenever your king is in check, you must use your turn to protect your king by either moving the king out of check, moving a different piece to block the path of the attack, or by capturing the piece that threatens the king. If the king cannot escape the threat and there is no move to protect the king, then it is checkmate and the game is over and the attacker wins. A draw occurs in one of the following ways. Players at any time may agree to end the game in a draw. If your king is not in check and you cannot legally move any of your pieces, there is an impossibility of checkmate from either player. If an identical position for all the pieces on the board occurs at least 3 times in the same game, then a draw may be claimed by either player on their turn. After 5 identical positions, then it results automatically in a draw. If in the previous 50 moves by each side no pawn has moved and no capture has been made, then a draw may be claimed by either player. After 75 moves, then it results in an automatic draw. Check out the link in the description for where you can play online for free.